ethos. When he managed to turn his eye from them, he saw Liesa glaring down at him in fury.
"So calculating," she rasped. "Hrun the barbarian who would boldly walk into the jaws of death himself?"
Hrun shrugged.
"Sure," he said. "The only reason for walking into the jaws of death is so you can steal his gold teeth."
He brought one arm around expansively, and the wooden bunk was at the end of it. It cannoned into the bowman, and Hrun followed it joyously, felling one man with a blow and snatching the weapon from another. A moment later it was all over. Liesa had not moved.
"Well?"
she said.
"Well, what?"
said Hrun from the carnage.
"Do you intend to kill me?"
"What? Oh, no. No, this is just, kind of a habit. Just keeping in practice. So where are these brothers?" He grinned.
Two-Flower sat on his straw and stared into the darkness. He wondered how long he had been there. Hours at least. Days, probably. He speculated that perhaps it had been years, and he had simply forgotten. No, that sort of thinking wouldn't do. He tried to think of something else. Grass, trees, fresh air, dragons. Dragons. There was the faintest of scrabblings in the darkness. Two-Flower felt the sweat prickle on his forehead. Something was in the cell with him, something that made small noises, but even in the pitch blackness gave the impression of hugeness. He felt the air move. When he lifted his arm, there was the greasy feel and faint shower of sparks that betokened a localized magical field. Two-Flower found himself fervently wishing for light. A gout of flame rolled past his head and struck the far wall. As the rocks flashed into furnace heat, he looked up at the dragon that now occupied more than half the cell.
"I obey, Lord,"
said a voice in his head. By the glow of the crackling, spitting stone, Two-Flower looked into his own reflection in two enormous green eyes. Beyond them, the dragon was as multi-hued, horned, spiked, and lithe as the one in his memory. A real dragon. Its folded wings were nevertheless still wide enough to scrape the wall on both sides of the room. It lay with him between its talons.
"Obey?" he said, his voice vibrating with terror and delight.
"Of course, Lord."
The glow faded away. Two-Flower pointed a trembling finger at where he remembered the door to be, and said,
"Open it."
The dragon raised its huge head. Again the ball of flame rolled out, but this time, as the dragon's neck muscles contracted, its colour faded from orange to yellow, from yellow to white, and finally to the faintest of blues. By that time the flame was also very thin, and where it touched the wall the molten rock spat and ran. When it reached the door, the metal exploded into a shower of hot droplets. Black shadows arced and jiggered over the walls. The metal bubbled for an eye-aching moment, and then the door fell in two pieces in the passage beyond. The flame winked out with a suddenness that was almost as startling as its arrival. Two-Flower stepped gingerly over the cooling door and looked up and down the corridor. It was empty. The dragon followed. The heavy door frame caused it some minor difficulty, which it overcame with a swing of its shoulders that tore the timber out and tossed it to one side. The creature looked expectantly at Two-Flower, its skin rippling and twitching as it sought to open its wings in the confines of the passage.
"How did you get in there?" said Two-Flower.
"You summoned me, Master."
"I don't remember doing that."
"In your mind. You called me up in your mind,"
thought the dragon patiently. "You mean I just thought of you, and there you were?"
"Yes."
"It was magic?"
"Yes."
"But I've thought about dragons all my life."
"In this place, the frontier between thought and reality is probably a little confused. All I know is that once I was not, and then you thought me, and then I was. Therefore, of course, I am yours to command."
"Good grief!"
Half a dozen guards chose that moment to turn the bend in the corridor. They stopped, open-mouthed. Then one remembered himself sufficiently to raise his crossbow and fire. The dragon's chest heaved. The quarrel exploded into flaming fragments in mid-air. The guards scurried out of sight. A fraction of a second later, a wash of flame played over the stones where they'd been standing. Two-Flower looked up in admiration.
"Can you fly, too?" he said.
"Of course."
Two-Flower glanced up and down the corridor and decided against following the guards.